Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm Callum. I'm a product manager here at Arturia, and I'm really excited to show you our latest effect. We have emulated the classic Lexicon 224. Our product is called the Rev LX-24. We've been working very hard, really meticulously making the engine sound as good as it is, working really hard on the UI, and I'm really proud of what we've achieved, and I can't wait to show you some of the features, a little bit of the history, and then show you putting it into a mix and just having fun. If you have any questions during this live stream, please write in the comments and we'll have some experts in there trying to answer as many of your feature requests, issues, or anything you have regarding the plugin. So, the Lexicon 224, why did we emulate it? The Lexicon was groundbreaking of its time, a digital reverb from the late 70s, and essentially was the reverb sound of the 80s. So before then, if you wanted to have a reverb, you'd really have to use either like a material or a space. So you'd send your vocals into a big room, or guitar, like reamp it into a big room and just capture the acoustics of that room. Other ones, you would send a signal through a plate, a big 6-meter plate reverb, or you'd send it through a spring reverb. So it's all physical material capturing a real thing. And what's so special about the Lexicon was it was the first digital reverb, which would recreate these spaces digitally. And yeah, it was almost like the first ever, or one of the first ever little computers. So it was like a little computer, well, not little, but this big, with its own sound card. And in there were these different spaces, plates, algorithms. So I wanted to show you the controller. This is the controller of the Lexicon. This is another real amazing feature from it, because you could actually control the decay time, the frequency responses, the depth of the reverb, and you had all the algorithms at the top here. Another really key, interesting feature about the Lexicon was that you could split the frequency responses of the decay. So maybe you'd want some more mids, less bass, more bass, less mids, and you do that with the crossover and pushing these sliders up or down. I'll show you it on our plugin. But yeah, this is what was so key, and I guess what was really key to the whole experience was just the sound of the Lexicon. It sounded really great, really warm, really lush. It works great on vocals, drums, and as I said, it was like the sound of the 80s. So really proud to have brought it into the eventual FX Collection 4, and yeah, just really excited to show you the product. So let's maybe we could just listen to it on some vocals, get to hear the sound, and then I'll take you through all the features.
I'm terrified to see you hiding in the darkness, colder when it's twilight, and I've been feeling restless. I'm terrified to see you hiding in the darkness, colder when it's twilight, and I've been feeling restless.
Yeah, I don't know. To me, it just sounds so beautiful, and I've been using it for the last, I guess, 2-3 months. It's just so fun getting into a mix, adding it to some drums. Yeah, I can't wait for everyone to have it if you would like to buy it. And yeah, it's one of my favorite reverbs that I've had. So yeah, we could talk about the sliders at the bottom, the algorithms, the different room shapes, and then we can talk about the converters, and then we'll talk about the advanced panel. So I kind of just wanted to as I said earlier, we can split the bass and the decay. On our model, it's a very similar feature, but we wanted to just have one decay slider and a bass offset. Because here it's a physical controller, I can move my fingers up and down if I want the same frequency decay across everything. On the software, it's a little bit harder. So on the decay, and when bass offset is at 0, it's essentially like moving the two sliders. So bass offset 0, 70 seconds, both decays are up 70 seconds, 0.6 seconds. It's a little bit easier to show you in the advanced view because we have a big visualizer, but that's essentially the idea. And then we have this crossover. So crossover defines which frequency band, well, which frequencies are below and above. So below is our bass offset and above is our mids and trebles. But we have to take that with a pinch of salt because the crossover can go up to 5K. So, or it can go up to 10.9K. So at 5K below that, is it really bass? No, but anyway. But we can have a little listen. I'll play around with the decay and the bass offset and the crossover for now.
I'm terrified to see you hiding in the darkness, colder when it's twilight.
So there you can really hear, I've dropped all the bass out as much as I can. And it's a very like trebly reverb sound.
Terrified to see you hiding in the darkness, colder when it's twilight, and I've been feeling restless.
And there again, you can hear it's like, I've pushed the bass, I've reduced the mids, and it's like, it's still quite MIDI, but it's more like muddy, less bright as the past one. So these are really fun. It's just a really good way of fine-tuning your reverb decay to sit in your mix nicely. And I just tend to, you know, just use my ears until I find I kind of ignore the values and wait for the right sound.
Colder when it's twilight, and I've been feeling restless.
Sounds really good to me. One other thing to just understand with these two values is that there is a relationship and the numbers kind of sometimes aren't as accurate as you would think. So let's say my decay is at 0.6 seconds. And if I push my bass offset, the actual overall decay roughly grows to about 3 seconds. If I'm at 70 seconds, and my bass decay is 100% more than that, the value is actually clipped. So I can't go beyond 70 seconds. And if I drop down to minus 100% bass offset, the overall sound actually, getting a bit of feedback. The overall sound of the decay is actually around like 15 seconds. I just tend to use, excuse me. I just tend to use my ears and just find the right sound. And then we have damping. So damping essentially removes, or it like removes some of the high frequency content from the reverb tail. So again, it's a nice way of having a sort of darker sound or a brighter sound.
I'm terrified to see you hiding in the darkness.
So that's damping at its full range, fully open.
I'm terrified to see you
Sorry.
hiding in the darkness, colder when it's twilight, and I've been feeling restless. I'm terrified to see.
So with these 4 controls, you can really fine-tune how the decay frequency response is working and the decay time. So you could just flick through presets. I'll talk about the presets in a bit, but flick through presets and fine-tune these. That's all you have to do, basically. They're so easy to use. Yeah, and a lot of fun. So I thought a good way of showing pre-delay would be on some drums. So pre-delay is adding pre-delay before the reverb decay. And it kind of gives depth to the reverb sound. So let me go for this one. So kind of just, let's hear it on and off, but it kind of just gives the drums a bit more liveliness. And then we have distance. So distance, imagine you're in a big hall and there's a singer, you've got your two microphones, and it's just how close we are to the source. So close distance, and then far away we hear a lot more reflections. I'm going to just choose a different preset. This is a good time to talk to you about the presets. We've had 4 or 5 really great sound designers making these really usable presets for you, and they're typed by what algorithm they're using. I'll talk about algorithms after going through the sliders. And they're usually named really nicely. So it's like large vocal plate. I'll put that on my vocals. Acoustic solo chamber, that could be good for violin. Drum crunch room. The one, what did I want to show you? The fat drum plate. Let's go. So really dry sound. I think I might be going in a bit hot here. And then let's go play with the pre-delay and the distance again. So it gives you kind of a tighter sound, or you can push it away a bit more of the sound of the room. Jump back to the vocals. So yeah, this is the sliders. I'm going to jump back to the vocals to talk about the algorithms. And then we have a dry wet slider. So full wet. Always useful. So on the vocals, this is where I wanted to talk to you about the algorithms.
I'm terrified to see you hiding in the darkness.
Let's go through the presets. Let's go for large vocal plate.
I'm terrified to see you hiding in the darkness.
Sounding great. So as I said at the beginning, what was so amazing about the Lexicon is that it created these different rooms and different materials to put the reverb through digitally. So we did the latest firmware of the Lexicon 224, so we get these 8 algorithm spaces. So there's halls, plates, chambers, rooms, and then like sort of variations of the halls, and this came with the different firmwares. So one thing to note is each algorithm has it's kind of like has its own preset, like its own init preset, because even like some of the value ranges change depending on algorithm. So we could, it's going to ruin this preset, but let's just go through the algorithms I could go to an init preset. So we can just listen to what each algorithm sounds like, and we can see that the sliders change depending on algorithm.
I'm terrified to see you hiding in the darkness, colder when it's twilight, and I've been feeling restless. I'm terrified to see you hiding in the darkness, colder when it's twilight, and I've been feeling restless. I'm terrified to see you.
So some of them are subtle, some of them, it really does change the texture of the vocals. And they're designed for specific use cases. So for example, the vocal plate really works well for vocals. And then we have the percussion plate, really works well for percussion. As I said earlier, the large concert hall could be great for violins or a piano, or you can swap and change. That's the beauty of this reverb, is that you could just experiment, mess around. It doesn't really matter, but these ones work well for these ones. It's up to you. So I'm going to go back to the preset that I was on, large vocal plate. So this is using the vocal plate, and perhaps you've spent, I don't know, 5 minutes, you've crafted the perfect reverb, but you want to try it with different algorithms, and you don't want to change all the slider positions. So this is where this lock button comes in. And on the Lexicon 224, it's called immediate. So we've just named it lock because it's a little bit more easier to read. So I press lock. It doesn't lock the sliders, so I can still move them. However, it does lock them when we go through the algorithms. So let's listen to this preset through different algorithms.
I'm terrified to see you hiding in the darkness, colder when it's twilight, and I've been feeling restless. I'm terrified to see you.
So you can hear how again, it's quite subtle on the source, but you can really hear how the reverb changes, the size of the decay, the reflections of the room. It's really fun to just dial through. This one works great. To the next track and go on. So that's the lock button. Mode enhancement and the decay I'm going to talk about when we go to the advanced pages. I think it'll be a bit easier to show you what happens to them. And then we have these 3 converters. So Vintage 12 is the classic conversion of the Lexicon 224. It is the Lexicon sound. And then we've developed the Vintage 24. So Vintage 12 is 12-bit. Vintage 24 is 24-bit. Both have a band limit at 8K, and that gives you the Lexicon sound. So anything above that is basically just cut off, and that's what gives you this sort of like dark, lush, warm tones. Vintage 24 also raises the floor noise, so it's like a cleaner version of the Lexicon sound. So I would probably use Vintage 24 most often, but true Lexicon a little bit improved, a bit less noisy. And then we have the modern mode. And the modern mode is 24-bit conversion. However, we've removed the band limit. So it goes up to the full spectrum, and it gives you this a lot more like bright, airy sounds. So I think the best thing to show you is on a drum kit, just because of the high frequency content. So I'll go through it again, but you can really hear how suddenly the whole frequency spectrum is opened up when we go to modern. So this is good for all sorts of different use cases. Maybe you want like dark vintage drum sounds, or go up to the modern one and it opens up a little bit more. Gives you that sort of, like I said, a bit more detail on the top end. So this is the 3D view, and because I guess I'll quickly talk about the advanced view in a second, but we really just wanted to be inspired by the Lexicon, give you the most essential controls for the 3D view, and make you feel like you're really interacting with this beautiful digital reverb, like we do with all our view collection instruments and FX collection. We want you to feel like you have your hands on the real deal. But advanced views are always good, and we know with modern workflow, it's nice to have everything in one place, good workflow. So this is why we designed. Excuse me. This is why we designed this, in my opinion. I helped design it, but lovely 2D view. I'm just gonna have a drink of water. Sorry, got a bit of a dry throat. Okay, so let's go to listen to a bit of guitar. And I really like this preset for it. Nice, sounds so good. Okay, so yeah, I wanted to just quickly talk about these last two buttons, and then we'll talk about the advanced features and the visualizer. Mode enhancement and decay. So mode enhancement, you see them down here. Mode enhancement is basically just modulation to the reverb tail, and it works in conjunction with pitch shift. So if I turn them off, pitch shift also turns off. When we go to high values, the reverb tail is very stable and it's very consistent. But this is quite a natural occurrence, really. And it's a good thing. Sometimes you want like a really clean reverb tail, and that's the beauty of digital. But the designers of the Lexicon thought it would be nice to be able to like modulate this, incorporate a bit of pitch shifting to give it that sort of more of a warmer, chorusy sound to extreme cases. So let's have a little play around so we can have a little hear. So let's go full stable. So now let's go extreme mode enhancement. It's going to go full wet so you can really hear it, but you can hear all the pitch shifting, and we're making it a bit more chorusy, which is sounding very nice. So yeah, if you want to have a bit of wobble to a decay, mode enhancement down to 2, or like the lower the stronger of mode enhancement, and then pitch shift up. But we can have just subtle pitch, mode enhancement strong. Really nice feature of the Lexicon. And the final one I wanted to show you was the decay optimization. So this, it really depends on what source you use, and I would say it's mainly used for drums or percussive sounds, or like really hard attacks. And it changes how the, sorry, just a glass of water, sorry. it changes like the early reflections of the reverb and some of the reverb tail, but it kind of like cleans up the drum sound. It's easier to show you. I've made a preset just so it's really obvious. Livestream Decay Optim. Nice name. And I think I was just going to do it on the snare, boringly. So you can hear, without it on, it's like bruh, bruh, and it's a bit messy. But if you put it on, it sort of like tightens it all up, and it sounds, I don't know, it's a lot more like under control. So without, and then with Decay on. So if you want a bit more of a tighter snare reverb, Decay Optim, and again, one is stronger, which is a bit confusing because this goes upwards, this goes downwards, but anyway, that's the way it was designed on the Lexicon, and we wanted to give you the true experience of the Lexicon. So let's talk about the visualizer, and then we'll go down to the bottom features. So we can hear, let's go this. What kind of presets should we go for? Maybe we could have a bit of guitar, look up guitar, fast guitar. Sounds pretty good to me. Okay, so as you can see, we have the visualizer. We can see the dry signal. Then we can see the decay cloud. So that's the blue cloud. If we drop it down, cloud's reduced. And then we have particles, but this is with distance and diffusion. I'll go over that in a minute. One important factor when we were designing the 2D view was that we wanted to not move away too much from the workflow from the original unit. So as you can see, the sliders are all here in perfect order, except for pre-delay. It's over here, but it's before the signal, so it made sense to be here, in our opinions. And then we moved the algorithms up to the top, lock, and the vintage and the converter modes. I really like this view. I mean, this is probably the view that I would use more often. It's a lot more visual, and I feel like I can control the decay times and the frequency responses a little bit better here. So as you can see, we have this sort of link button which links the crossover and the decay. And then we had the bass offset. So maybe just want to hear some mids, drop the bass. Maybe I want a lot more bass. Again, bass is sometimes accurate, sometimes not so accurate labeling, but you get the picture. And one thing that's really nice in this view is that we can see when the bass offset is clipped, when I was talking to you earlier. So as you can see, this line is actually the maximum of where bass offset can go. And then we have like a ghost line because we have the offset up here. And again, when we go down, you can see the bass offset has actually gone beyond its clipped value. So we can see that here. So it's really nice. And, you know, I want 25% more bass than my mids and trebles. It's just a really easy way of moving them all in the same ratio. Like back to here, I've got my nice thing. I can move them in the same, roughly the same scale, roughly the same offset. And that was the idea behind this feature. Here it's a lot easier to see the damping. I kind of see it as I'm a bit of a synth guy as well, so I see it as like a big low cutoff filter, but it's not a filter. Nice. And then the last two, the last feature that we haven't talked about on the visualizer is diffusion. I think I'm going to go to a drum beat. Change preset, drums. What should we go for? Crunch drum. Sounds good. So this really shows off the distance and the diffusion. So really close distance. Quite extreme. You can hear all the reflections, and this is good to show off diffusion. So diffusion, I think the best way that I like to think about it, we're in algorithm room A. So we're in a room. Diffusion at 1 is basically all the walls are made out of concrete, and we can really hear the reflections like bouncing right back at us. Really clean reflections of the room we're in. And then when I move diffusion to max, it's as if I've put the curtains all the way around, and all the diffusions, they're less static, a bit more random, a bit more filtered, and it gives you a different tone. So it's maybe best to just play some material and I'll show you it. Excuse me. Not sure if this preset's showing it off that well. There we go. I'll play it again, but you can hear it's all the reflections seem to have like merged, and it's a bit more cohesive when we're in the curtain room. And then when we're at 1 with the concrete room, it's like you can hear all the reflections coming back at you, and it's really clear. So yeah, all these are all, except for what we've done with bass offset, just the feature set from the Lexicon 224. They did a great job back in the 70s, late 70s. And yeah, I'm really, really happy with the engine. I think it's sounding great. So down at the bottom, we've added some of our own features just to sort of, again, like bring a bit more of the modern workflow and the modern sound into the product. The drive is the only thing that's still kind of from the vintage engine. I thought I would show you it on a bass, a walking bass. So we'll go input and we'll talk about this dynamic module and then the master. Yeah, let's go talk about the bass. I think it's easy to show on bass. I don't know if you'd normally put reverb on bass, but why the hell not? And then I swear there was like a bass presence. Let me just turn. So the drive's like quite subtle. You can overdrive it. It's just to give a bit of grit and flavor if you wanted to. It's quite easy to hear it on the bass. And then we have a high pass, so maybe you only want to hear, maybe you want to have a clean bass signal, overdrive it, but only catch like the sort of richer harmonics of the bass just to give the bass a bit more presence in the reverb tail. Nice. So that's, yeah, just like a simple drive, high pass filter. And then we get to the dynamic module, which I have so much fun playing with. And I wanted to show you with some stabby chords. And I found a really great preset to show it off, which is called Moving Loop Plate. So as you can hear it, so we have these three modules. This one's the tremolo. And it basically, depending on what mode you're in, it opens and closes the reverb tail. So tremolo is just a simple LFO, and it sort of like opens, closes, opens, closes. So you can get some really cool sort of like side chainy effects like this. Without. Really nice. I actually put it with a drum beat. This drum beat's pretty simple, but it sounds good. So straight away you can just add this like really like dynamic reverb to pumping chords or to percussive things. Really cool. So just hold on 2 secs. Let's go back to this. So I'll show you the gate. So like classic how gate work, you have your input. If you go beyond your threshold, you open the reverb. And it was like really common in the 80s for snare drums. I'll do a little preview of that, but you'd hit the snare. As soon as it goes over a threshold, it would, so you hit it, go over the threshold, then it'll close. So it sounds like the snare is in a big room, but only for half a second. So it could like really fit into your songs and then your mix, but it sounds like a massive snare, but then the reverb closes very quickly. I'll do a little demo of that. I thought first I'll just do this on the pumping chords. So no reverb. No reverb. So just on the, just as it goes over the threshold, open up the reverb, quickly close it, really nice effect. And then we had the release, so depending on how much, if it releases all the way up, the gate won't close before we have the next sort of stab. And then on my classic drums, we'll just go back to the snare. There we go. Very, I'll show you on this other drum beat that I've got in a second, some nice gate. And then the ducker is the opposite of gate, so anything below the threshold has reverb. If it goes above it, it's a clean signal. So maybe you want your vocal track is over the threshold, she or he is singing, and then as she like finishes her final line, it opens the reverb and she has like a reverb tail for the final, you know, phrase of the final word of the phrase. So let's go for a bit more electronic sound. Hope it's not too loud. So no reverb. So there you can just get the right settings, and then just on every snare hit, it's just opening up a little bit. Or on every kick, sorry. So yeah, lots of fun to be had with our dynamic module. I kind of want to go back and do the other thing again. So I do it. Very cool. And then the final section is the master section. So it's just like a tilt, a brightness tilt, make it a little bit darker, making it a little bit brighter, tilt filter, stereo width, just simply 100% normal. Then we go beyond a bit and down to like a really narrow reverb, and then just the reverb level. Cool. All right, one last thing I just wanted to show you. Only take a few minutes. I just wanted to show you how impactful the Lexicon is with a track, because all these are just on single sources. And although it's very nice to show you how each feature works and it's interesting, it's probably not how it's going to be used in real life. So I went on the internet, downloaded some samples, some drums and piano, and I really wanted to just show you how much the Lexicon can just open up a mix and like really bring life to it. So I started with just like just started with this nice piano. They're all a bit sort of like lo-fi vibe. So this is with the Lexicon on. So just straight, I mean, let's just stop talking about features, who cares? Let's just, sound, it just sounds so good. I just found a preset called Perfect Keyboard, put it on, didn't touch anything. Then I wanted to put some drums with it. And then I wanted to give the drums, because they're quite like, they're nice, they're quite dry though, they're in a sort of small space, so I wanted to give it a bit more life. Just give them a bit more character, put them in a room. That's all I wanted to do. And then a bit of bass. No reverb on the bass, not needed. And then I got my really nice vocals.
Take a little time to hold your head up.
But they're very kind of lo-fi record. It sounds like it's coming from a radio. So I wanted to give them a bit of room with the reverb. So
Take a little time to hold your head up.
So this is Atmos. It's like the first preset on the in the featured list, and it just the Lexicon. It just sounds so good.
Take a little time.
And then we have the backing vocals. I was like, what shall I do for the backing vocals? How about I use backing vocals chamber?
Take a little time to hold your head up.
So just sounding great. And this is what it all sounds like together.
Take a little time to hold your head up. I know it got bad. Take a little time to hold your head up. I know it got bad.
No Lexicon
Take a little time to hold your head up.
with the LX-24.
Take a little time to hold your head up. I know it got
To me, it sounds really dry. This sounds just like semi-pro, and then it goes to pro.
take a little time to hold your head up. I know it got bad.
So there you go. I hope it was interesting. I feel like that's sort of the end of the live stream. Before I go, I want to say a huge... let me just turn these off because it's just a little bit of sound from it. I want to say a huge thanks to everyone at Arturia, from all the DSP team to the software developers, sound design, product design, marketing. I think we should be really proud of what we've achieved here. It sounds so one-to-one to the Lexicon 224. Very proud to add it into our body of effects, and I hope you enjoy it. For the next 2 weeks, there should be a intro price, so please grab it or get the demo and try it out. It's one of my favorite reverbs we've made, and maybe one of the most famous reverbs of all time. So I think it will just work on every track that you want. So there you go. I hope you enjoyed it, and yeah, have a good one. Thank you very much for coming.